Okay, let's get started. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our second ISM Trust 2022 Teach Meet. The ISM Trust is the Incorporated Society of Musicians sister charity and works to create pioneering resources to support all those who work in the music sector, and seeks to challenge, educate, and inspire through webinars, seminars, events, printed and digital resources, and advice packs. I'm Vinota Karunasagar, Creative Content and Publications Manager at the ISM, and I'm excited to be joined again by Dr. Alison Daubney. We've got a great lineup of presenters, and there will be time for discussions after each presentation. But before we get started, just a few points. If you experience any technical difficulties, such as sound qualities, please let us know in the chat box and we'll attempt to resolve this. If you wish to use them, subtitles are available by enabling them at the bottom of your screen. After each presentation, you have the opportunity to ask questions, so please do so by raising your hand, and this function is also available at the bottom of your screen. Or you can use the questions and answers box, and we'll try and get through as many of your questions as we can. This Teach Meet session is being recorded and it will be available to watch back in a few days' time at the ISM Trust website, which is ismtrust.org/seminars. And now, without further ado, let me hand over to Alison to introduce our first presenter.
Thank you very much, Vinota. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's Teach Meet. We've got 4 presentations this afternoon. They're very varied and they are on a variety of different topics and from people at different points in their teaching career. So we're absolutely delighted that we've been joined by the presenters this afternoon. As Vinota said, there'll be time after each one for chatting with the presenter and also amongst ourselves around the topics which they are going to be talking about. And so without further ado, I'm going to pass over to James Manwaring, who is Director of Music for the Windsor Learning Partnership, which is a small MAT in the Royal Borough of Windsor and Maidenhead. So James, over to you for the next 10 minutes.
Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you've had a lovely day, and it's my pleasure to be here, whether you're watching us live or whether you're watching this later on in the week with your feet up. It's great that you're here, and well done for choosing to invest in your CPD and enriching your own minds around music education. And I'm going to be talking about extracurricular recovery, and I kind of was thinking about this quite a lot because I don't know, what situation you're in with your department post-pandemic. It's been quite a funny couple of years, and it might be that you are fully recovered. It might be you are recovering, or that you're thinking about starting that process. And I guess first of all, I just wanted to think about why do we need extracurricular music? I'm quite a big advocate for that. And I want you to understand that throughout everything I say, this is all on the basis of the fact that without a strong curriculum and without the stuff going on in the classroom, the extracurricular is second to that. That's our job. But I'm not here to talk about curriculum as much as I'd love to. I'm here to talk about extracurricular, and I believe we do need it. Absolutely. Is it worth recovering? Yes, and we mustn't let anything that we did have before the pandemic disappear. And I was kind of thinking about, what is music teaching in general? And it's a bit like a story. And if you think about most stories, there are heroes in the story, and those are our students. They're the ones we're doing everything for. They are the Frodo in Lord of the Rings, and we are their guides, a little bit of a Gandalf type character. We are there to guide them through their journey with us. But in stories you also get villains, the baddies that come along to get in the way, and they cause problems for us. And I guess the pandemic was a pretty big problem and a bit of a villain in life. And for us as teachers, we have so many problems. Some of them are external, like budget cuts, hitting targets, the EBAC, that horrible thing, and kind of lack of support. And then as teachers, we've got our own internal things. Are we doing a good job? How can we keep going? Are we inspiring enough? Am I a good teacher? These are things we wonder about every day. And then we've got that kind of philosophical side of things about students deserving to experience music and the joy of music making inside the classroom and outside the classroom. And I guess we've got to try and overcome problems. And when we're thinking about recovery, we're trying to think, how can we overcome these villains, if you'll stick with my story analogy, so that students can become heroes and flourish, and music can flourish in our schools. And I guess, you know, what we do is a bit like a product, isn't it? We're trying to sell that to students. We're trying to get them on board with what we're teach them in such a way that they're going to buy into things, and also help them along their way, and say to them, look, if you get involved in this extracurricular group, this is going to help you. This is going to give you what you might need. Because students have got these problems too. They've got exams, they've got parental pressure, peer pressure, social media pressure. And actually post-pandemic, maybe they gave up their instrument. Maybe they've given up on this whole idea of studying music at GCSE or A level because they think they can't do it anymore. Maybe they don't think they're good enough. They're not sure they belong. And they're worried about, you know, do I actually have any talent anymore? And they want to find this place to belong. And so, you know, today I'm kind of thinking, well, what do we do? You know, what do we offer in our schools? And in terms of recovery, it's a great chance to think, actually, you know, what do I do? And assuming that your curriculum is strong and in place, we can think that actually we want to offer them the very best extracurricular program that we can, always keeping in mind those problems, because they're not just going to go away, and sometimes we have to overcome them. And I just want to share with you kind of my thoughts on extracurricular in general, because I think in terms of recovery, it might be that you actually have taken on a job during the pandemic, and so it's not so much recovery, but you're starting things out. Or it might be you've been teaching for a while. And so here's a few kind of specific post-pandemic extracurricular recovery thoughts. My first is small ensembles are fine. Sometimes less is more. You know, if you had large choirs and groups before and now you don't, that's fine. You can start small and you can build up again. And I've seen a real resurgence of like bands and loads of kids just playing in bands, rock bands, and it's just great fun. And yes, I want to get back to stages where I got more involved, but small is fine. Also, you know, reevaluate what you do, why you do it, and the impact it has. And that's really important in terms of when we recover from something. And these last couple of years, we have a chance to reevaluate. And we can invent new things. I think a really good part of recovery is doing something new. Don't ditch Zoom. Use it to your advantage. I still teach on a Friday morning on Zoom about 500 first school children in my trust. They're all there, they're loving it, and it works, and it's been great. And I use it to my advantage because I can't get around to all of the schools in one go. And partnerships, they work and they matter more than ever. And also, you know, start music, tech and composition clubs. I don't know whether you did that during the pandemic on Zoom, actually teaching stuff. Start them in your schools if that was something that you did, and that can be really beneficial. I'm conscious I'm talking really fast, but hey, you could slow it down when you watch the recording, but I'm trying to get through all of this. So here are some of my top tips for what extracurricular should look like. And so if you're thinking about recovering it, if you're thinking about building it up for the first time, if you're thinking about growing what you already have, then hopefully these few words will help you. You know, make it inclusive. If you want people to come along, if you want students to get involved, if you want to rebuild things, make sure it's inclusive. Make sure there's something for everyone. You know, even if you want to do the symphony orchestra and you want to do a chamber choir, you know, have a samba band, have a chair drumming group, have a music tech group, have a guitar group. I'm not saying anything derogatory about those types of musical groups, but make sure that it's inclusive for everybody. Make sure there's something for all of them. Make sure it's worthwhile. You know, during the pandemic, we all kind of thought, oh, why do we do this? You know, are we going to still go along to that? Are we going to keep that gym membership? Are we going to keep up with the running and all that stuff? You know, we want to make sure that the time we spend is worthwhile. Make sure that when students go along, they're getting something from it, that it's worth them turning up and being involved. If you're wanting to recover extracurricular, make sure it's fun, for goodness sake. Make sure they enjoy it. If they're giving up their lunchtime or after school, make sure it's fun. If you haven't done a group for a while, make sure that first rehearsal is really fun and really enjoyable. We are allowed to use the word fun in education, even when we're talking about the curriculum. It's really important students enjoy it, and enjoyment can come in lots of different ways, I know, but just make sure it's fun. Be consistent again. Now that we're kind of coming out the back of this last few years, be consistent. Get back to those weekly, daily rehearsals, same time, same place, always there, always having the same format and the same setup. Don't let things rock the boat. Just try and keep it going. Students love consistency, and it's something that I certainly love as well. Start thinking about community again. You know, I think one of the best ways to recover, is to think about the school community, think about the department community, and then the community out there, actually getting out and playing. And I've started to see some things on Twitter this weekend of bands going out and just playing at things and getting out in the community. It's just so rewarding, and it really helps to rebuild that sense of why we are doing this music and the real purpose behind it. I always want to be able to say yes. Now, I live in Windsor, and I've got a very famous lady up the road who lives in a big castle. And if she were to call me tonight, which I doubt because she hasn't got my number, then I would want to be able to say yes. And I think that it doesn't just mean the Queen, but if a teacher, your head teacher, someone in your community, a local charity, if they want you to be able to, if they want some music, be able to say yes. And think, when you think about recovery, think, have I got groups that I can just get out, get playing, get involved in the community? Can you say yes? And if some of your ensembles, maybe you think, oh gosh, I wouldn't want anyone to hear them. Maybe have a little think about that. And remember that in all of this, parents are a really important partner, and talking to them, getting them on board, just finding out actually during the lockdown, during the pandemic, were your kids doing things? What were they interested in? What were they getting involved in? How can we help? And really partner with parents. And I've just started a parent kind of friends group for the trust I work in, and they're really helping me to get music on the map and raise money and all of that kind of stuff. So extracurricular, you need the parents on board as well. And of course, your music hub, just working with them and any other partners. I mentioned earlier, partnership is so important. We need all the help we can get. So in terms of recovery, who can you partner with? Who can you work with? And of course, remember, like I said at the beginning, it's all about the students. They're the heroes in this story, in this recovery. They're the ones that we're working for. They're the ones that we're going to take through our school, and we want to provide for them. We want to make sure we lead them on their journey to success. So talk to them, find out what they want, get them involved, get them leading groups, get them taking ensembles, starting new things, fronting up concerts. The students are the absolute heartbeat of the department. I love this quote, come to the edge, we might fall. Come to the edge, it's too high. Come to the edge, and they came, and he pushed, and they flew. And I think it's so important when we regather our students, that we get them to come with us to the edge. And they might fall, they might think it's too high, but actually they're going to fly as a result. And that's what extracurricular does. It gives those students that opportunity to really fly. And so when you're thinking about recovery, think, what do you want to build? What do you want to do where you are, in your school, in your mat, in your community, and just build something, whether it be new, whether it be a rehash of what you've done before. And I really love this quote from Walt Disney. I only hope that we don't lose sight of one thing that was all started by a mouse. And it might be the smallest thing that you do, the smallest change. It might be just one student that you reach that you've never reached before. And that will make all the difference in terms of extracurricular. So, as you're on that road to recovery, and hopefully in this very quick 10 minutes, you'll be thinking about what inspired you and wanting to share that with students, and remember that you're taking them on this journey. And I hope that some of these ideas you'll be able to take away, think about, ponder, and hopefully now you'll have some questions for me, and I'd love to be able to answer them and share with you any other kind of practical ideas, because I realised that all of that was fairly philosophical. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and hopefully we might have a few questions from the virtual floor.
Brilliant, James. Thank you so much for your inspiring and positive talk there. And I'm sure people will think of things to write now. They've kind of got a minute or so to kind of gather their thoughts. I've got some things to kind of get us started. And I wondered if you could say something about, obviously in your mat, you've got the lower schools, which is more the primary phase we were dealing with yesterday, but you've also got middle schools, which would start crossing secondary age, and then your own school that you've historically worked in, the upper school. Yeah. What the differences would be in the way you would help colleagues to approach not just extracurricular, put my teeth in, extracurricular recovery, but also for children who have necessarily just changed schools, maybe haven't sung in school for a couple of years, that kind of thing, or played instruments at different ages. Can you give some advice to us about how you would handle that and help other people to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I think like with the first school age, you're talking like years 1 to 4, we've really been trying to just get them back to the idea of of singing and performing, and so we've been doing a lot of stuff on Zoom. And so just before half term, we had these small performances. I call them pick-up performances. So they're at pick-up time, all the parents are there, captive audience, and you go, right, we're going to sing you a song. And it worked really well as this kind of small scale thing that they can get involved in. And then with the kind of middle school age, they're the ones where I feel they've kind of really missed out on some of the rite of passage moving through. They didn't do their year 4 show, and they've had a couple of years of difficulty. And so what I'm working on with them is this idea of trying to partner a bit more with some of the senior students in terms of organising a concert in a couple of months' time, where we're kind of taking a little bit of the pressure off of them, but giving them a chance to be part of something, but not feel overwhelmed with all that's going on. Because I've just found that when we've mentioned trying to do something too much, there's a bit of reluctance still, like, oh, what will happen? And so getting them involved in stuff we're doing maybe more than we have in the past. But I mean, the kind of the younger years schools are still on quite a journey, and one of the big things is actually establishing the idea of staying after school and doing something musical, and because it's sometimes hard to do it at lunchtime with the way that staggered lunches and all that kind of stuff are. So yeah, I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, and what about in the upper school settings? Obviously, that's a different thing again. I think if you've got year 9 upwards in your upper school.
Yeah, so year 9 upwards. Well, I found that everything's recovered quite well. Not so much learning instruments. That's a big problem. But I think things have recovered. I mean, my advice is that you have got to work quite hard, and you've got to target things really specifically, and actually really looking at what the students want and where you can get them. I mean, so for example, lots of year 9s have just said, oh, I want to learn the guitar, because they kind of did it a bit during lockdown. And in the past, I haven't necessarily done those kind of groups where you're learning an instrument as an extracurricular thing, but just responding to them a bit more. But also doing small little performances. So I just call them recitals. So just I'm doing a piano one next Monday. Just everyone who plays the piano, let's do a performance. Some of them have never done that before, and trying to keep it low key, as well as the kind of the bigger scale one. So having something for everyone, whether it be a really small thing at lunchtime or a large scale end of term concert.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I think the thing that goes through all of the things you've talked about is celebration. Celebration of what we can do, celebration, community, being together, all of that kind of stuff. There's a point here from Richard that talks about music tech clubs. And he says they're a brilliant idea, great also for peer-to-peer interaction, for SEND, and also using perhaps the RSL graded music exams in production. So thank you, Richard. I've seen that quite a few times as well.
It's a great idea.
And then Emily's put up about the low-stake performances linked to the extracurricular is a great idea, really important. Yeah, like Emily, I love the pick-up performance.
Yeah, that's a little phrase I coined. I mean, I'm a big fan of everything that Emily ever says. And during lockdown, I kind of was looking at all of her stuff, and I really looked at this idea of different types of performances. Like doing performances online, doing these pick-up performances really, quick. And most people understand the pick-up idea in first schools, not so much. I mean, the boys at the boys' school don't get picked up at the end of the day, but actually it does work really well, just really quick. And so many parents were there. Oh, my goodness, and the whole school just stood and sang, and it was really quick, and it works. And I think the low stakes stuff, whether it be at a lunchtime, it just gives them something to work towards, because extracurricular is nothing worse than just doing it for the sake of it. And so actually one good way to recover something is say, right, we are going to perform even if it's just an assembly at the end of term, or look for opportunities. Like we've got year 9 options next week where they all come round and look at what GCSEs they're going to do. So I've just said, right, we're going to have a rock band playing. And they've kind of said, oh, we don't normally have music. And I said, well, great, we do now. Because they're going to have parents sat in the hall for half an hour waiting for someone to start. And so we may as well have a band playing. So look for things like that that you can get kids involved in.
The pickup thing, there's a school in Brighton that before COVID was doing the kind of opposite end of the day. They were doing a drop-off on a Friday morning. So everybody would come 10 minutes early, and they did a whole school sing-song. And so it wasn't just the children, it was their parents, their siblings, the school cooks, the cleaners, the teachers.
Brilliant.
And it kind of took away the I don't sing thing, because and they ended up with 2 songbooks, songs for a rainy day, songs for a sunny day, and they come in and go, sir, song 38, sunny day, you know, and so would choose what they've done. And so it's that same kind of idea. And I think, you know, like you said, bringing those other stakeholders in is really important. Yeah. Okay, one other question from me, actually. You talked about your music education hub and the importance of working in partnerships. So within your specific context, are there ways which you have managed to work with your music education hub on extracurricular that might be useful to other people in other areas to look at?
Well, I'll be honest, of late we haven't done much, but I get involved in anything that they offer in terms of the larger scale events that I can't do, whether it be singing a massive choral work or getting opportunities to send kids along to kind of county stuff. But I'm also looking more at kind of some of the local groups that I think are struggling, some of the choral societies or local orchestras, and actually thinking how can we, and because we've got this Platinum Jubilee coming up, which is great, how can we actually work with some of these groups that are also struggling to recover? You know, if you run a community choir, it was pretty hard work in the pandemic. So those are the kind of things I'm looking at, as well as we're really trying to partner with all of the schools locally, and the Jubilee has been this real catalyst for that, and actually getting them all together and saying, right, let's do we're having a week in just before the actual Platinum Jubilee where we're just going to try and do stuff all together, and that's been amazing because it's actually the first time all the schools for a long time have been together doing things. So I think it's just looking for ways of joining up and doing something, and it doesn't have to be massive great big things, but just little projects, as well as hopefully a big concert for the Jubilee, and then I want to try and keep it going every year after that. But I'd certainly like to do more with the hub and more with local groups. There's a few theatre schools that have kind of got in touch and said, oh, we're struggling a little bit to recover, how can we work with you? So I think look out for groups that might have mutual benefits, as well as schools.
I suppose it's about being aware of what else is there, isn't it? In that way. So the partnership is sometimes working with them, but sometimes it's knowing where to signpost people. Yeah. Particular students, particular interests, etc. James, you want to give us one parting thought before we move on to Annabelle? But thank you so much.
Oh, that's all right. Well, Emily just mentioned about fundraising. I mean, basically, I've just got this parent group together, and we all met on Zoom, and then they all got excited about this idea of actually raising money and supporting music. And then I basically said, right, well, you go ahead and do that, but maybe like organise a launch event and have some music at it. So tomorrow evening, we're having this launch event, which is going to be kind of to launch that. But I guess my parting thought as well is, extracurricular is great, all of this stuff is great, but music teaching can be tough. So don't suffer in silence, don't work in isolation. Make sure you connect with other music teachers, and I'd love to hear from anyone who's got any questions or just wants any advice for me, or got any great ideas. I'm always looking for that. But working with other bodies and organisations, and working together, whether it be on Twitter or Facebook or in Music Teachers Association, whatever it might be, ISM, Music Mark, all these wonderful groups, work together and share the love and the joy of music on Twitter, because sometimes it can be a bit doom and gloom. And thank you for having me.
Brilliant. Thank you, James. I put you on first because I really wanted such an inspiring and uplifting positive start.
Oh, thank you.
And you've certainly given us that. So thank you very much. We're going to pass over now to Annabelle Elkington. Annabelle taught in school for 2.5 years as a secondary school teacher. At the moment, she's just started working as an instrumental teacher, I think in Swindon, teaching woodwind and piano. And she's going to be talking about some things about rhythm and pulse that she's found work really well with students. So over to Annabelle. Thank you, Annabelle.
Hang on, I'm not on mute. That's a good start. Good afternoon, everyone. As Ali said, my name's Annabelle Elkington, and this is actually my first time doing this, so it's a pleasure to meet you all. So hang on, let me get my PowerPoint ready. There we go. Just put it on full screen now. There we go. Okay, so I just want to introduce myself a little bit. So I achieved a music degree, a degree in classical music at Leeds Conservatoire in 2018, and then I did my PGC with QTS in secondary music at the University of Cumbria in 2019. And again, as I worked at Braden Forest School as teacher of music from 2019 to 2021. So I recently moved to peripatetic, but I still wanted to discuss something that I felt was successful during my teaching practice, during my time at Braden Forest School, and even during the pandemic. So in this presentation, I'll be discussing practical work of chair drumming as part of the known topic rhythm and pulse. I used this method back in 2020, just after the first lockdown. So it's when everyone was coming back in, all the staggered years, all the year hubs, that period. And I'm going to be basically talking about how it kept my learners occupied, how it introduced a lot of content early on in this development, and how it's been a good substitute to other topics and resources that we would normally use and how I'd like to do this again post-pandemic. And also, it was something, when I was doing it, it was something that was successful. It was with Year 7, and it brought everyone, with each class, it brought everyone together, which is probably what they all needed after being locked up for so long, with all this uncertainty, all this online work being thrown at them. I mean, with music teachers, we were throwing all sorts of theory work because that was the easiest plan we could really do, just giving them theory work, because at the time it was all this was brand new to us. We didn't really know how much how Zoom and Teams really worked, so we thought it was a good idea to have a topic like this. And also, like James said in his presentation, extracurricular stood still completely, and we never knew when we would get it back. So again, this was another reason why it was successful, because it gave off this energy, and they were learning all sorts of things and just having fun. And I'm just going to move on to my next slide. Hopefully this should work. Cool. So chair drumming, it was a practical focus, part of the topic rhythm and pulse, and it was introduced to Year 7. So the topic was completed after the baseline assessments, in case anyone was wondering. So yes, we still did baseline assessments, that was still key for us. And basically what makes the topic engaging is that pupils are able to adapt to different rhythms. They can have fun with it, they can make their own rhythms in a really creative way, and also because they're Year 7 and they're excited, hitting their chairs basically. That's another good factor of having fun in the music room, especially this topic. And as well as it being successful, looking at rhythm patterns, it's also allowed people to demonstrate knowledge on a drum kit. So for example, the playmat is used for a snare. I'm not sure if you can see clearly in this picture. I knew if I made it bigger when I was planning it, everything on this slide would move. So you'd have snare here, obviously you have the drumsticks in your hands, and then you have you'd also have something for the top of the chair so it doesn't get damaged. It just, like I said, it's bringing everyone together, all as one class, getting to, communication, teamwork played a major role in this. And I know with music, especially group work, pair work, all that kind of communication when working really helped. It's really helped with the communication and the group work. It's also a useful way of forming creative rhythmic patterns and encourages people to follow the music pattern. I am going to discuss this a little later on with rhythm grids, etc. So what musical context can you actually introduce this early on in a with Year 7? So it's important to introduce the baseline assessment, like I said in the previous slide, at the start of their academic year. They already have knowledge on the elements of music, such as duration, which is the main element that we looked at with this topic, because it's to do with the rhythm. And they've also done keyboard skills as part of the building bricks, graphics scores, all of that. So they already got that ticked off, and they're now ready to learn something more adventurous and with other resources. So when introducing the first lesson of the topic, for instance, of course, spend time distinguishing between rhythm and the beat. So that's a really important thing to tick off when you're doing this topic. And to introduce a series of icebreakers or starter tasks that are related to this. So I like to do a few clapping rhythms for the pupils. So I clap something and then they clap it back, and they do that while marching on the spot. So when they're clapping, so a clapping rhythm like this, the rhythm, and then obviously stamping on the spot would represent that beat, so they understand the difference between the rhythm and the beat. When I challenge it a little bit, I then introduce the don't clap this one back. I'm sure the vast majority of us have done this in class. Whoever claps the rhythm back, they're out, they have to sit down. So that's a really good one to introduce beforehand as well. It gets them going, gets them thinking. Once successful with the clapping rhythms and understanding the importance of the rhythm and the beats, you'd introduce the notation step by step. So firstly, just go for the simple crotchet rhythm like I've got here. So I would clap it first, so 4 crotchets, and then they do the same thing. And then you transfer that on to the chair drumming. So they grab their sticks and they would hit a part of their chair and play that crotchet rhythm. So when it comes to chair drumming, I would add each symbol. So I would have a foot, either a foot for bass drum, or the play mat for the snare. So let's say if I have a foot there, snare, and then a hi-hat, they go foot, play mat, hi-hat, with using that crotchet rhythm. So here's one example of a practical task that I would introduce. So to help pupils follow along with this rhythm, I've put the rhythm grid here. I'll put it on the main board for pupils to follow. So what we would do, you demonstrate each rhythm. So I would do each line and then put it all together at the end. With the basic ingredients of the chair drumming covered at this point, basically including how to set it up, introduce more complex rhythms like this one with the quaver. So if you have quavers and crotchets, I like to do the T coffee T. So coffee representing the twin quavers there, and a T representing the crotchet. So that gets stuck in their heads really easily, and it will help them produce that rhythm. So once that's been put in place, you then complete the whole rhythm grid, like I say. And once they've done that a few times, and once I've sent them away to do it, they can do it in pairs or in groups. Like I said at the beginning, it's all about getting together, communicating with each other, working as a team. So once we've all done that, I would then play. We play this rhythm along with soundtrack, and I would normally use a lot of kind of known rock songs with a common time signature. As you can see, this is in 4/4. I have a lot of playlists as well, so I'd use something like AC/DC. music like that, because in their songs the beat is incredibly strong. It's very easy to follow. Their guitar rhythms are incredibly catchy. So if they have that when they're playing it whilst playing along to something like that, they'll basically adapt to that and play it fluently and basically motivate them with a really catchy song they can play to. And I am a bit, but I mean, I'm biased because I like rock music. It is really good to it's really good to have that. Really good to have that with that in the background. And then eventually, of course, you would then add some chair drumming cymbals to that. So you'd have like kick, snare, snare. So kick, snare, snare, hi-hat, for instance.
Just got about a minute left.
Oh, okay. So for the behaviour aspect, obviously they're year 7, they're excited, and like I said at the beginning, Ali, I could not put the Muppets at the bottom there. So yeah, stick to your behaviour system, whichever system you have at school. Use it. Set boundaries, like put sticks down when you're told. Don't grab things at once, because that's led to a few instant arguments. Unfortunately, there was a minor injury involving a drumstick, but basically get each group, if they're in groups, get each group to get their equipment group by group, not all together, because it will be like a herd of sheep running at you. And also risk assessment is very important, as there, like I say, there was a lot of equipment can lead to an injury, especially with drumsticks. So yeah, just be careful. And lastly, I just want to talk to you about how it was COVID friendly. So over the last 2 years, yes, it's been difficult, and we kind of lacked resources due to either sanitation issues or because we're in the music hubs, and we were limited to where we could go. So we were fortunate enough to collect them and take them to the music room. So with year 7, we use this equipment, especially for year 7. So there was no need to sanitize anything for the other year groups. And yeah, another reason how the above situation made it successful was that it got the year 7s going at such an early stage, such an early stage in the academic year. They perform so many rhythms, and also it's also really good to have that, because rhythm and beats, they're everywhere. So in the next topic, you can introduce the rhythm, you can introduce 4/4 time, 3/4 time, because we covered that as well. And yeah, it was just a really good topic to use. I mean, it's funny how I used it just because of COVID, but now I really want to do it again just because of all the content they learned like this early on in year 7. So yeah, I apologize. I did apologize, Ali. I did rush a little bit when you said 1 minute, but yeah, I finished. Hang on. Should I stop sharing the screen once I finish, or?
If you can stop sharing the screen, please.
Thank you. Oh, stop share. There we go.
I think Ali might have frozen.
Okay. I've just seen your message, Kathleen. Yeah. Yeah.
Just waiting for Ali to join us back again. But that was a great presentation, Annabelle.
Oh, thank you.
Just have a quick look and see if there's any questions in the chat.
I have a question. I just wrote in the chat that sorry, I'm Emily. Hi, sorry.
Hi, Emily.
Back on. I can see how this kind of topic is quite helpful, kind of building ensemble early on with year 7. Where would you take that next? What would be your kind of next kind of project? Where would you take that kind of skill building? What would it be working towards?
So in terms of the curriculum, so we would we introduced rhythm before the basic notation, the treble clef and the bass clef. So let's say I've done the rhythm topic, and I'm introducing something else, and I'm going to give them notes on treble clef, just basic notes on treble clef, and I'd get them to play a little something on the keyboard because they know crotchets, they know quavers, so things like that. It's like that existing knowledge would kind of enhance that that theory based topic a bit more. Hang on, Jen's asked something. Yes, so yeah, that's a really good question, and yours was really good as well, Emily. So yeah, there were quite a few keen drummers. However, I remember them not mentioning and not expressing it until later on in year 7, which was probably down to the fact that this rhythm topic was in the latter half of term 1, so it was the run up to Christmas, and then after Christmas we were back in lockdown again. So that was probably why they didn't express any interest until after then. But I remember I think it was after Easter, when we all came back in properly, we started printing off applications for the Perry, for the Swindon Peripatetic Music Service, and there were quite a few interests for drums. Like everyone would say, "Oh, I want to learn the drums." So yeah, I did experience a lot of that. So yeah, that was a good outcome.
Apologies about that. I just froze out just as you got right to the end.
Okay, no worries.
I really liked that you just got them in and got them going with the musicking, and that you thought that was really, really important. Where might you suggest people go to for practical resources for this? Have you got any top tips on that?
Okay, so I have a confession to make. I did have one more slide, but I ran out of time.
That's okay. We can put it up at the end. We'll put it up on when we put.
Okay. I used musical context and musical features.
Right.
So for musical features, there were some videos, quite a few videos from beginners to advanced, and musical features in particular was really effective because, I mean, we didn't realize it was effective until someone in year 7 tested positive, and everyone in that class had to be sent home for 2 weeks. And at the time it was for 2 weeks. It was like isolation period was 2 weeks, and therefore we had 2 music lessons online. So I even cheated as well and found some stuff on YouTube. So YouTube on top of musical features videos were really effective, and you put it on Satchel 1 or whatever you use to submit online work for homework and stuff, and yeah, that really worked then. And yeah, we did that. We didn't take it for granted ever since, just because we realized it was effective when people did it at home.
Yeah.
And going back to the chair drumming itself, during their isolation period, I stupidly got them to grab themselves a wooden spoon, because obviously they were sitting on a chair on the live lesson, and yeah, I got quite a few comments saying my dog's barking or my little baby sister's crying.
It's great that you managed to keep all that going as an online thing, and were determined to get back to musicking. Claire has put a comment up saying that they use a similar topic when they move drumming notation onto the body percussion. I know Ollie Tomlin has done a lot of work on that with Beat Goes On as well, using 4 lines for each, so that so for each part of the body, so that they begin to transfer the skill over to reading staff notation. And then the next topic, she says, we introduce a scale and they compose melodic fragments. So you can really see the kind of graduation of the percussion there in different ways.
Yeah.
So it's really easy to push the learning and add in the more complex rhythms. So thank you for that there.
Absolutely, because especially when you're doing a topic like African drumming, because we did that. When did we do that? We did that after third lockdown. African drumming, samba drumming. That things like that made topics like that, further topics
They
like
see
that.
all the connections, don't they?
Yeah,
As the time
they all connect together in one, don't they?
So I'm going to say thank you very, very much for sharing that with us, and also for your honesty about the risk assessment and the about the drumstick injuries at the moment. So
there was only one.
From injury. I'll go back to the singular. And now we're going to pass over to Emily Crowhurst. Emily is the Head of Music and Performing Arts at School 21 in Newham in East London. Thank you, Emily.
Thank you, Ali. Hi, everybody. Really nice to see everybody. As Ali already introduced me, my name's Emily. I've been teaching for 10 years in London schools. I'm actually currently on maternity leave, so I've got a 5-month-old somewhere in the building somewhere, so I'm hoping I won't have to scoot off during this presentation. But I'm here to talk a little bit about curriculum project tunings, which I think is a really brilliant way of getting the best out of your ideas, whether you're a music teacher in a team or if you're kind of a single person department, which is so often the case in the current climate. So the purpose of tuning a project or scheme is the idea of kind of critiquing your planning before you deliver your work in order to challenge and deepen thinking, to get feedback on maybe a kind of a planning dilemma you might be facing related to either a group of students or an aspect of the work that you are finding difficult to plan for, and also to kind of get a new perspective, kind of a new angle on a project or scheme idea. And the idea of this is that it will lead to more ambitious planning and, of course, much more rigorous planning. Because what we really, really want in our music classrooms, I believe, is the most authentic and purposeful learning experience we can possibly get. And to do that, we really need to kind of invest time in the planning. But in order to have really effective planning, we need to kind of soundboard our ideas and get feedback from those around us. Now, the barriers to this in lots of schools are that we're often very time poor, particularly as music teachers. We're running around doing, obviously planning our curriculum and also running clubs, extracurricular activities after school, lots of things going on. So we're often kind of really kind of time poor. Another barrier, I think, is that often we're very small departments or even one-person departments. So actually having somebody to speak to about your ideas is sometimes not even an option. So I'm going to sort of propose some ways that this actually might help to alleviate that. And also sometimes if you're working in a school that can be quite kind of bureaucratic or has a kind of a culture of maybe fear rather than feedback. So, you know, people are coming in, giving you lesson observations and giving you numbers against your lesson still, or kind of giving you kind of very kind of clinical feedback rather than thinking about how to help develop and support you as a craftsperson in your space. And that can be a real barrier as well. So what I hope is that this introduction of this kind of tuning protocol might help with some of those things. So firstly, so what is a project tuning? Basically it's a protocoled process, and that's a very important aspect of it, to enable you to share and discuss some thinking around your planning to help move that thinking forward. And it will usually involve you as the presenter of the project and hopefully 3 to 5 participants, okay? And these participants will hopefully be a range of voices, could even include a student or a couple of students, which is another way of getting an additional voice, a different additional angle around your planning. Another kind of key thing around the participants, that it's very useful to have a timekeeper within those participants and also a facilitator who makes sure that the protocols are being followed. And although that sounds quite pernickety, it's a really important part of making sure the project tuning is really tight in terms of timing, so it doesn't kind of bleed into other people's free time, and also is a really effective process. And just a note on the right hand side, just where we've kind of got this project tuning idea from, a lot of School 21's sort of ideas around kind of project-based learning and the idea of creating projects of real purpose in the world come from an organisation called Innovation Unit, who are an American organisation, and there's a link on the slide there that you can click on if you want to find out a bit more about what they do. So it kind of links to that. So that's where this kind of idea comes from. So I'm going to talk through kind of very quickly a typical tuning protocol. So this is a 20-minute protocol. You can shorten it, so you can change the timing slightly, but you kind of want to keep the balance and the ratio of each section broadly the same all the way through. So it starts off with maybe you as the person who is kind of presenting the planning or the scheme of work as far as it's got so far, you'll present that to the participants, and they will not be speaking at all. They might be making notes about the project as you're talking. You'll share your ideas, you'll share your vision, and most importantly, you'll also share a dilemma that you might be facing with the planning of the scheme or the planning of the project. Okay, so that's the first step. Then comes 3 minutes for clarifying questions, and it's really important that these questions are very straightforward with brief factual answers. So for example, it might be that the presenter didn't mention who the cohort are, or didn't mention the length of time that the scheme of work is running for example. So these kind of very short clarifying questions to enable the group that are critiquing the work to get a really clear idea of the project in as much detail as possible. After that, you've then got 3 minutes for slightly more intense questioning, where you might probe the presenter with kind of more in-depth questions. So for example, it might be that it's a project that's heavily reliant on group work, and you might want to probe the presenter by saying, you know, how are you going to ensure that the students work effectively together in a group? So that's a bit more of a meaty question, but it's really important in this space that you don't give advice in disguise, i.e. don't say, well, have you thought about this, for example. So it's got to be about not giving advice, but genuinely trying to find out as much as you can about what the presenter is thinking. So it's developmental whether you are the presenter or the person involved in the discussion and the critique. Once that section is over, you as the presenter will then step out of the conversation, and you will then observe the participants discuss your project proposal and discuss the dilemma question and share their feedback. And it's really important that as a participant that you begin with really warm feedback, and you kind of recognise that it's your presenters in a really vulnerable position, sharing their ideas. And so you really lead with kind of warmth and energy. And then you might go a bit more hard hitting with your critique and your ideas for how they might solve their dilemma and move their planning forward. So while that's going on, the presenter has to be completely silent and is just making notes. So if you hear something you don't like, you just make a little note of it. You can decide what you want to actually listen to and engage with, but you just let the discussion flow. And then the final bit is you do get the opportunity as the presenter to kind of share your reflections on that discussion and kind of share back to the group what your reflections are and your next steps. Okay, so what that is there's a really tight 20-minute process to allow you to get your ideas off the page, share it with a group of people, whether they're in your department or maybe they might be in another part of the arts faculty, or maybe you might want to bring a history teacher in because you're doing something linked to some historical context that might be relevant. You might want to bring in the art teacher because you're maybe looking at something that you might want to be creating with the students as well. You might want to bring in a parent because you want to think about how you might involve the community. It's all about thinking about who you need in the room to help you move that planning forward. A couple of tips just linked with this when you're giving that feedback, which I've spoken about briefly already. These again, they can seem quite sometimes unnecessary. If you've got a really high functioning team and you kind of speak really kindly to each other naturally, you don't necessarily need these kind of protocols, but we're often working with people that we might not necessarily like or that don't like us. And we actually need to have sometimes protocols for ensuring that we kind of really focus on the content and actually what we're trying to do, which is develop amazing projects and schemes and learning for our students, and not thinking about who it is that is presenting that work. So that one in the middle, be hard on the context, up to the person, I think is really, really important. And making sure your feedback's just kind, helpful and specific. Very, very simple, but actually really kind of makes a difference. And also when you are in a group, making sure that you kind of share the air. So you're not kind of dominating that conversation. You step up and you make your point, and then you might invite others into the conversation. These tips are also very helpful if you're managing discussions with students as well. Really good protocols to use in your classroom, both work equally well for students as well as adults. So finally, just final tips with this. It's really important that you're faithful to the process. Have a timekeeper. Remember, we said one of the barriers to our things to really effective planning is time. If you know that you've got a process that's going to take 20 minutes, or you could even do it in 10, you can do I've done really tight ones before, then you know that's the time that you're going to be using. It's not going to go over, it's not going to go under, and then you can move on with your day and move on with whatever else you've got to do. It's also really important that you have that facilitator. So if someone is kind of giving advice in disguise or giving probing questions when it should be clarifying, just to kind of make sure that the tuning is really, really focused. The second tip is that tunings become more effective across your school and for yourselves the more you practice them. They can be a bit stilted to begin with, sometimes quite difficult to know what to say, or it might be someone's not really presented much of an idea, so then it's quite hard to kind of get it going. But as you get used to the process, it's a really, really effective way of creating a really a much more powerful learning experience by furthering your planning. And then finally, as I sort of mentioned before, is be as generous as you can with your feedback. Acknowledge the vulnerability that someone is showing by sharing their work with you, so that then when that's been done effectively, then they're ready to go off and redraft their scheme accordingly. They can organise a second tuning if needed, and then they can go and start then mapping their planning against whatever criteria that they have in their school that they use to create something really powerful. Just as the last slide, this is the sort of checklist that I use with my team with all my planning at School 21, which also comes from this same innovation unit kind of work. And I think these are really good things to work from when you're doing your planning, to get really, really high quality schemes of work, really good rigor with your planning. And they also link really well to the tuning process, because you might have a dilemma that's linked to one of these specifically. There's a lot of information on that slide, but obviously I'm happy to share these at the end of the presentation so you can have a look at your leisure. So that's a whistle-stop tour of project tunings. If you want to get in touch with me to know more, my email address and my Twitter handle is there. And if there are any questions, I'd be very happy to answer them.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Emily. As ever, you covered so much in 12 minutes there. Just brilliant. And I really always admire the way that you look for authentic and purposeful musical learning through everything you do and everything that you share, which is absolutely great. I just wondered if you could share an example from your own perspective of being the person who's taken the work along, and an example of how it's moved your work forward in terms of, I had this idea, this is what happened, you know, what people said, and this is how it ended up, so that we think about that process and the musical learning that came at the end of it, I guess. Yeah,
I'm trying to think of a good project example in particular. I think a more recent one that I did, again, it was, actually, no, it was 2019, but it was with a new year 7 cohort, although we're an all through school, so we do carry some through, but we do inherit new year 7s. But it's a kind of a bit like I think, was it Annabelle that was presenting earlier? I can't remember. Annabelle, yeah, was saying about kind of building that kind of ensemble at the beginning of year 7, and I wanted a project that would do that really authentically. And it'd been the same year that Beyonce had done her Coachella performance, and this idea of having a homecoming. And so I thought I really wanted to see if we could recreate something of that magnitude with our year 7 cohort, and think about building in lots of different pieces of music, American marching band drum lines, design, choreography, etc. So I was going mad with kind of ideas, but I knew that I didn't have the expertise in all those areas to think about how best to deliver those aspects and to make it authentic, to make it rich and actually meaningful, not just kind of a pinch of this and a pinch of that. So in that particular situation, I had a PE teacher who specialises in dance, tuning the project, and eventually it resulted in a collaboration with them for the project. So they then embedded it in their work. So we then expanded the project out. And then we also had a member of the drama team in there as well. We had an art teacher, and then our music team as well. And it just enabled us to kind of soundboard, okay, like if we want to create this, you know, these designs, or we did some flag designs for this particular one, how do we do that in a way that's rich and meaningful, that doesn't detract from the music making, but actually enhances the experience students are having? How can we make it a homework task, for example, that really works? And what expertise do we need? So I think that's probably a good example of one.
Yeah, and that authenticity that you talk about, it kind of reminds me that all too often, because of the way curriculum is kind of organised in schools, we put music in a special box, don't we? And we kind of go, well, this is music, and this is art, and this is drama, and this is dance. But actually the overlaps and the possibilities for working together are huge on that. We've got loads of comments coming in. Claire's just put up about it being brilliant because so often we work independently sorting out our own schemes of work. But often, as you're reminding us here about working with colleagues or working with parents and getting ideas from other people is a really rich way to do that. Abby, you had a question a bit further up. Do you want to ask that?
I'm in a really noisy space, so it might actually be better, Ali, if you could read it out. Sorry.
Don't worry, I've got a crying child upstairs, so.
Abby put up that it's really useful to be reminded of the innovation unit work, and I agree with you there, Abby, because obviously over the years we've both seen a lot of that, especially around the musical futures kind of world of things as it used to be, and resonated with Ron Berger's multiple drafting and Austin's butterfly model. And do you do that similarly with your students as well?
Yeah, so the Austin's butterfly is about the idea of like redrafting, and I think it's the same with this process. So it's a replica. I really like the idea that actually as teachers and as curriculum makers, I think sometimes we forget that is a really big part of our job, is that we almost mirror the processes that we want the students to follow. So if we're going to do a Beyonce's Homecoming project, which if you haven't seen that, obviously you haven't got a clue what I'm talking about, but you can Google it later. Then we need to kind of know what would be the steps that we would take. And in doing this tuning process, we're redrafting our planning and redrafting our thinking of what the product will look like and working backwards from that. So then when the students do it, you're kind of already in their heads in terms of what the process kind of needs to be. And you also got an idea of the timeline. Obviously, you've got to multiply everything by about 10 in terms of the speed and rate. Not to think deficit for students, but it just because you might only have an hour a week with them. So you've also got to think about kind of what's realistic in the time, but also, how do you incorporate that kind of redrafting? And I think that an important thing about that is, although this sounds like there's loads of things going on, having just one product at the end, rather than thinking we're creating this, and this, and it's all just a load of random stuff that we sew together, but actually focusing on that one end product and going straight into that. You don't need to do a draft version of a different thing. Sometimes when we write blues songs, you might start by writing a random blues song about something that's got nothing to do with it. Get straight into writing about the blues song you want to write at the end, for example. That's just another way of thinking about it. I think when you kind of zone in on one thing, you then got that opportunity to redraft in a really powerful way.
Do you have a similar process at the end, out of interest? Because obviously what you talk about here is a lot of kind of reflection and reflective and reflexive thinking. So what happens at the end of a project?
I mean, I think in an ideal world, you would have a reflective process. And I think with certain things, we do have reflection mechanisms. The reality is with the pace of school is you finish something and then it's kind of on to the next thing. But what I think is important is that we kind of operate almost like a 70-30 model in terms of replication of projects and then creation of new things. So there might be 60-70% of new stuff every year, but with us in a similar vein. And then 30-40% of projects that have worked really well that we do year in, year out. And so therefore they get, they kind of get redrafted in themselves. And so we might reflect on what's happened there. But I think there definitely is room to have a more kind of specific reflection that we don't do particularly. I
guess because you come back to some of the projects, you kind of do have that when you come back to it the next time round, though, or the learning goes into the next project. Would you say that?
Not.
Or not?
It might not necessarily go like as in like the autumn term feeds into the spring term project, but you might have a cyclical thing in terms of, so we've got 5 pillars in our curriculum: ensemble, creativity, community, mastery, and flow. So ensemble is always a big focus of our autumn projects because it builds towards our big concert, which has every child in it. So every autumn concert every year, so from when the students' reception all the way up to year 9, they'll be doing a big ensemble based project. So they'll be developing a particular type of ensemble skill. So I suppose the spiraling of the skills there happens that way, but not necessarily one leading to the next to the next. See what I mean.
Right. Yeah, I do, definitely. And thank you so much. It's always inspiring to hear you talking about your work. And if you haven't looked at it already, do go and have a look at a lot of things that Emily's already put up online, which I think are probably on that final slide. Links to those around curriculum.
Yeah, I'll share it. I'll put a link to our music website as well.
Yeah, that would be brilliant. Thank you so much. So on to our final for the afternoon. We're delighted to welcome Janetta Hurst back, who talked to us last time about some things around her work. She's head of music at the Joe Richardson Community School in Dagenham in East London. And she's been working with Abby, who's also with us here today, on some things around Every Copy Counts, which I'm starting to see all over social media. So I'm really excited to hear more about it. Over to you.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Can someone let me know that I can be heard? Give me a thumbs up or a yes in the chat. Marvellous, thank you. And Ruth is very kindly going to share the slides for me. Just wait for Ruth to come back. And then get cracking. It's nice to be here, nice to see you all. Hello, and I've really enjoyed the presentations. Let's just see. Hi Ruth, if we could go into full screen, that would be awesome. Just down here, where is it? Let's have a look. This little presenter tool next to the slide. There's at the bottom right, there's a sliding, yeah, just the little, yes, that one. Thank you so much. No, it doesn't want to, don't worry about it. I'll crack on. I'll make a start, everyone. Okay, so it's really good to be here, and good afternoon to everybody. Good evening almost now. I'm going to briefly introduce the Every Copy Counts resources to you guys. And Every Copy Counts is a campaign that seeks to raise awareness of the need for equity in royalty payments to composers and to support schools in their responsibility to log copying data so that royalties are fairly distributed. So as Ali just mentioned, the director of Every Copy Counts is with us today, Abby Demore, and she commissioned a team of experienced music teachers to create a set of resources to be made available to schools across the UK who sign up for the Every Copy Counts campaign. Okay, we can go to the next slide. This is just a little introduction to the Year 1 Teacher Studio team. So we've completed the Year 1 process, and the resources are all available to anybody who's signed up to the programme. And just to say, a shameless plug, at the top there you can see Eleanor's email address and the website for Every Copy Counts. And if you are interested in joining us in the Year 2 Teacher Studio, indeed you know anyone who might be, it is a paid role, and you can just drop Eleanor a line. I think the closing date's tomorrow, but get in touch with us if you would like to be involved. So the Teacher Studio team, I headed up the Teacher Studio and worked with fantastic colleagues, Andy McLean, representing Scotland, Katie Miner, Midlands based, but representing Brixton at the moment, Rob Kitchen and Ryan Buckia worked together, and Vanessa Wilson Best. And on the right there you can see Copycat, who is the Every Copy Counts mascot. So you will see him around in the social media campaign. Thank you. Next slide, please. So the aims, very briefly, of Every Copy Counts, I kind of touched on that, but to ensure your school is complying with the licence. So the school's printed music licence is what covers our ability as teachers to photocopy music in school, so sheet music and also printed music online, anything available online, song lyrics, guitar tabs, etc. So this is just to make sure that we're complying with the licence and to raise awareness of our responsibility. And then once schools are signed up, you get free access to the Teacher Studio resources, and you get to join a community who support fairness in print music copyright. Next slide, please. So we met as a team a few times before going off and getting the sets of resources produced, and we decided on a format. So it was a mixed media format, so we felt there could be walkthrough videos, background videos of, you know, what happens behind the scenes and a little bit about the composers. And it was really important to us as a team that we showcased diverse composers as well. We wanted it to be an editable resource, so anybody can download those resources once they're signed up, as I've said, and then they can edit it to suit their setting. Process videos about how you can go from an idea to fully fledged composer, listening materials, and sharing ideas on getting your music out there. Okay, next slide, please. We created the content block, which really is just about process. So this was something that allowed all 4 sets of resources, 2 for primary age and 2 for secondary age, all 4 sets of resources to kind of link and to have this sitting underneath all 4 of them as we went off in our own corners to get working on them. So we wanted, you would have seen things like this around before in terms of this continuum, so not necessarily going step by step, but going in any order that works again for your setting and for however many times you've got music on the curriculum a week or not. Whether you're teaching in a carousel, whether you're teaching just a block of time. So hearing it, feeling it, exploring the music, performing the music, creating the music, evaluating it, reimagining it, so going back to it and doing it again, and sharing it. So we have on the next slide just a short video, just before the video, the 4 resources, I'll come back to this in a moment, but the 4 resources are a sonic branding resource for secondary age students. So we've used that in our school in the autumn into spring term. Composing cues by Vanessa, the soul of jazz music, and game piece music. So I'll tell you a little bit more about those in a moment. Next slide, please. So this very short video just takes you through the process of signing up and accessing the resources. I think the sound's missing, but no worries. You can still just watch, it's very short. So this is the online portal. This shows you a little bit about the resources. This is Katie in action. Modelling to the children. Okay, you can go on to, oh no, there's just a little bit more, sorry, a little bit more. Okay, we'll go on to the next slide, thank you. So a little bit about each of the resources, just wanted to just sort of dig into, just to breeze through what's there. Vanessa's composing cube was all about using patterns, words, and heart, the emotion behind composing. If you could go to the next slide for me. So she came up with, it's just my favourite resource just because you get so many ideas. Several ideas that she suggests that you actually put them into a cube in your classroom and let students take out different ideas and try them out using technology, using live instruments, using your voice, using just your mind for lyric writing. Lots of ideas there in the composing cube. And the next slide will show a little bit about, this is Roshi, who was one of our featured composers. So Roshi's work was all about building compositions through words, and you can just dip into the videos and share a little bit at a time with your students as and when you feel. The next slide is all about the audio logo resource, which we tried out in our school. So I love this resource. It just starts with sharing the kind of visual logos that you can see now, and then going on to creating, you can adapt this and do it however you want to. We had the students, we were just out of, you know, lockdowns and getting back into face-to-face teaching, etc. So we got the students to build their confidence to go off and work in small groups. We had to reteach all of those skills, because they've had a year of not doing anything like that. And for some students, these are year 9s, but it's a long time since they've had a go at anything like group composing. So they went off in groups and did some composing with meeting a brief and composing with instruments, percussion, their own instruments, keyboards, whatever, and then took it onto computers. And our students came up with some amazing short audio logos meeting a brief. So I think we gave them an energy drink, a health spa. There were several suggested in the resource, and the students absolutely loved that. They came up with some really creative ideas. It's a really nice way to make instantaneous music after so much disruption last year. So that was a huge hit. So I recommend that one. Next slide, please. This is a little bit of the theory behind how sound is produced and how it might go away. So there was a lot of experimentation actually with pre-recorded loops, but then also with students creating their own sounds. And it's just really nice to see students understanding that they need to be able to meet a brief. And we spoke about that a lot last year with film, music and music and media, but actually getting them back in the classroom to experiment with matching a brief to the correct sound, which obviously then prepares them for Key Stage 4 learning as well. The next slide is back to the jazz resource. So again, we brought in Ashley Allen, who's a working signed composer and artist, and brought him in to help with our songwriting element of that resource. And just the next slide, please, is the game piece music by Rob and Ryan. So we featured John Zorn here, and there's listening activities, there's creating activities. If you go to the final slide, this is a really lovely set of videos where Rob showed himself working with his students in practice. So you'll see ideas. I think one of the big things that came from this was that teachers working in such a broad range of settings, from the generalist primary teacher who doesn't feel that confident in the classroom, perhaps with music making, to the years experienced head of music or music teacher. So there really is something in there for everybody. So if you'd like to join us on the journey for year 2, please get in touch. And yeah, if anyone does have any questions, I've really done a whistle-stop tour, but welcome to answer any questions and I'll answer them if I can.
Wow, amazing. So much in 10 minutes and bang on time. So thank you, because that leaves us a good amount of time for discussion. There's obviously an awful lot in that set of resources that you just shared. I really loved even just the name, the Musical Dungeon Master, which was great. You were talking about the logo resource, weren't you? But that you'd use your own
audio logos. And
I wondered if you could say something about the technology that you used. Because you said we use technology. What did you use? What might you recommend?
Yes, actually, we kept it really simple. So we use Macs in our school, and they're really old, but they still run GarageBand really well. And for just an introductory step into getting students, especially where they've had so much disruption, and when they weren't in their music rooms and they were in bubbles, they weren't able to use the computers. So yeah, it's a really good step into technology. That's the DAW that we use. But I mean, in the past I've used Logic, I've used Cubase, probably Logic. We have Logic in our studio actually. I think Logic is a really nice way of doing it. With GarageBand, I think the ease of it is you have got the loops, but a lot of the children actually tried just to create their own MIDI tracks and just to experiment with selecting different sounds. But there's nothing wrong with it. It's very instantaneous. I've used it in many schools over and over again, just jumping straight in. And then the idea of just looping gives that differentiation and it builds their confidence as well. So do you feel comfortable to use your loops in either GarageBand or Logic?
Great, thank you. Also, I know that the last time you came to talk to us was also about composing, and you've done quite a lot of work with sound and music. And I was wondering, for people who aren't so confident perhaps with teaching composing and the kind of creative exploration that you're talking about here, and this wonderful kind of messing around with music in a way, in a very kind of structured but unstructured but purposeful, authentic way. What advice have you got for them for how to facilitate this in their classrooms?
Well, our work was paired work. That's the first thing. So you got to think about your groupings. You have to think about things before when you're talking specifically about working with technology.
Well, with the project that you were describing, the logo project.
Yes, yeah. I think it sounds a little bit like when is it Annabelle was talking quite honestly about her accidents with drumsticks and things like that. I think one of the pitfalls of working with technology is broken things. So it's having, you know, many schools probably don't have that benefit of having technician anymore. I used to have one, I don't have one anymore. And I think it's just setting yourself up, be realistic as well about what you can run at the same time. You might need to split it and run half a year group doing one project and half a year group doing a different project. I don't know, it depends on if you've got the room capacity, if you've got computers in more than one room and more than one teacher. I just think the logistics, for me in my current school, the logistics of working with technology is actually the thing that I have to give the most thought to. But certainly in terms of the composing process, I don't think it was suggested in the resource to start with instruments. It was suggested just to go straight to the technology. But for me, actually using the instruments first and students choosing a brief that they were going to carry through to technology, it just got them experimenting, playing, which is something that Nancy Evans always encourages young people to do, just to play with sound, experiment with the sounds you can create. I think that was the window into the success when it came to working with the technology, because they'd already had ideas of the types of sounds they wanted to create. And I think that's the key. I think it's not necessarily notating it. You don't necessarily have to get everybody to write everything down. Notate something, use words, use staff notation, use graphic scores, whatever, if you want to write something down, but actually just playing around with sound first in real time with real instruments before going to technology, I think it was a real winner for us. And I was really blown away with the creativity, actually. They really enjoyed that. And that was year 9s. They've missed a year of music making in year 8, live music making effectively as a year group, and they weren't shy in having a go. So yeah, you wouldn't have necessarily thought you'd get that level of creativity for year 9s who maybe aren't going to carry on with music or whatever, but it was a real success.
Yeah, that's great. And it's interesting you talk about that kind of hands-on musicking and playing with the ideas first. So in your own school then, I mean, obviously you've run that project once. What changes are you thinking about for the next time round that you might be useful to us to kind of pick it up from your perspective as a teacher?
I actually think the time frame, I think I would like to think again about how much time we gave to it. So for me, personally, I'm just trying to cover as much in terms of catching the students up on what I feel they missed last year. But actually I would give more time to it. I would give more time to the initial idea of understanding, listening to. It's important to listen to lots of different audio logos, but then give more time to the live music making, and then give even more time to the moment where the students really came alive. They had that opportunity to just break away and just experiment with their ideas, to throw ideas away. We've heard it mentioned here, I think in the last Teach Meet, the idea of the composer's scrapbook, and I think that was really important. Something that really came out for me was just teaching them from year 9 not to throw their ideas away, because we know we've all been there when they're working at Key Stage 4 and they've spent weeks working on something and then they just decide they want to do something completely different and start again. So really embedding that idea of keeping a composer's scrapbook of ideas, so that no idea is a bad idea. You might want to come back to it later, but getting them to build up a range of ideas and work with those. But yeah, time would be the biggest thing that I would reconsider the next time.
Would you say, is that about making it run across a longer period of time, that, you know, so the project maybe around for half a term and you want it for a term? Is that what you're kind of thinking on time?
Well, here's the thing. So the Ofsted review, the music review from last summer, I've been digging into that, and one of the things that's come from that, which is quite reassuring for me, is this idea of every school being really realistic about their offer. And I think that that's a really important point that we really need to get out there and make sure people don't feel, teachers aren't feeling the pressure just to get through several projects and just get through teaching, you know, the majority of what was on the model music curriculum, for example. Just slow down and have breadth and depth rather than trying to cover too many different concepts. So for me, it would be different for every person. I don't think I'd go as far as a term. In my school, with the students that I'm working with, the range of students I'm working with, perhaps a term might be just slightly too long, but 6 to 8 weeks, six to 8 weeks, rather than trying to say sort of, and we always lose weeks at the beginning and weeks at the end. Say, for instance, everyone knows it, the autumn term, with Christmas at the end and meetings and all the rest of it at the beginning. So if you think about how long you've really got, I think that Ofsted report said something like it equates to a week of music making. I think it's a week of music making that we get if we combine everything that we have. If we have 1 hour a week, that's not a lot. Like a week in terms of your working day, that's what the students get. When I think about it that way, I'm thinking, actually, let me pause. I'd rather get more out of that working week for every child in year 7, 8 and 9 than bouncing through a range of projects to say that we taught skills, but how well are the skills embedded, and then how well prepared are they going to be for Key Stage 4? So yeah, that's something, time is something that I'm going to be really thinking about moving forwards.
Yeah, and I think Emily's just put a comment up, and it very much actually resonates with what she was talking about this afternoon too, which is thinking you've really thought about your own students, your own cohort and your own context, you know, and having the confidence to kind of be able to take those choices for yourself about the ownership and the value and what it is you want. We're going to have to wrap it up there, but do you want to just remind us very quickly where we're going to go to get involved with this?
Yes, let me put the two, I will just type quickly into the chat the two, I wonder if I'm going to see it now. Hold on, bear with me. I think I've closed it actually. Hold on one moment.
And hopefully Janetta and Abby can pick up any questions that people might have with, you know, following this up afterwards, and that would be absolutely great too. So while Janetta is just putting that up, everybody.
Thanks, Abby.
Oh, thank you, Abby. That's brilliant. I just want to say a massive thank you, actually. We've covered an awful lot this afternoon in an hour and a half, 4 really, really diverse and important topics that are all about helping children to make and create music, helping young people to have these authentic musical experiences that start in the classroom, and as James was talking about, the absolute vital importance of that in the curriculum, but then how we can spin that off into the extracurricular, the co-curricular, whatever we may call it, the community and all of those things too. So I want to say a massive thank you to all of our presenters this afternoon, a big round of applause to them, and I'm going to pass back over to Vinota. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Alison. Thank you to the presenters as well for such an insightful presentations and for giving us so much to think about. And thank you to the viewers as well for joining us today. This recording will be available shortly on the ISM Trust website at ismtrust.org/seminars. And there's also a host of other webinars and seminars that you'll be able to download for free on the same web link. If you want to be among the first to find out about upcoming ISM Trust events and resources, as well as news from the ISM, you can sign up to our monthly newsletter, also via the link in the chat that Ruth is going to pop in there. And lastly, thank you for joining us, and hope you all have a pleasant evening, and we hope to see you at another ISM Trust event soon.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you all.